Well, today I'm heading to Siam Paragon in Bangkok, Thailand to complete the 20 watch challenge. Now, I'm not sure if that's actually a thing, but it's something that I'm doing and it's the first time I'm trying it, but I'm going to try and find 20 watches that I've thought about that I want to go and find, I want to go and try on and see whether or not I can achieve these 20 watches to try on. Now, Siam Paragon is this huge, big shopping centre. There's like 7 floors, lots of luxury stuff. It's very much the luxury store in Bangkok. Certainly not the cheapest place to go if you want to go find cheaper things in Thailand or cheaper items or cheaper places to eat, but certainly the luxury stores like Panerai, and there was a specific Panerai that I wanted to try on. I've tried a couple of Panerais before, and they're quite large watches. I can sort of get away with them. It's the kind of watch that you sort of can expect for it to be big and sit a little bit big on wrist. But the one that I wanted to try on was their 40mm version. This one is a little bit more, probably more wrist friendly for me. So when I arrived, I then saw it, and then I saw there was a 38mm version too, which I had not seen before. So I ended up getting to try on both. Here's the 40mm version on my 17cm wrist, which, to be honest, I think it fits quite right. And here's the 38, which I actually think looks okay, but I think it's the 40mm that really probably suits me best out of the two. And that blue sunburst effect dial was particularly nice. The staff in there were particularly good as well. They're happy for me to try on a couple of watches. So, success. Next door to there was Patek, which I'd never actually tried on before. I've never been specifically inclined to before. They're nice and they're very expensive, but I thought if I was going to try one on, I'd go for this, what I call their sort of Pilot series. Not surprisingly, I like Pilot watches, and they do some nice Pilot style watches. I think they do call this a Pilot. It's a chronograph. It's also a GMT. It also has a really cool feature that it has a day and night indicator for both the local time and the GMT time. So it's a double day and night complication, and I was a little bit unsure whether I was going to be able to try this one on, being the slightly more fancy brand, I guess, but I got in there and they were more than happy for me to try on a couple of watches. But it was this one that I really thought was probably my style. The other watches I think are just nice to look at, but not something that I particularly want to try on. So success. So they're all sort of on the same sort of level, all the watch stores, all the luxury stores, and they're all with these other luxury brands, as you can see. Very much a luxury brand shopping mall. And if I was going to go into a luxury brand, well, the one that really stands out to me is always Lange. I love their watches, and the first one that I really thought that I'd want to see is their Lange 1, which I think is gorgeous. But when I arrived, the first watch that sort of stood out to me straight in their sort of entranceway was something a little bit different. So I changed my mind when I arrived, because right in front of me was their Zeitwerk, which, well, I think that's an awesome looking watch. I've always been sort of drawn to it. I think a lot of people like this design, or at very least it's something very different. So I thought perhaps, well, rather than the Lange one, let's try this one on, and they let me. This is the platinum version. They also had the gold version there, which they let me try on too. And it was interesting to see on the rear of them, the mechanical movements were all sort of hand engraved and a little bit differently hand engraved. So that was a success too. Next, Montblanc, and I've tried on lots of Montblanc before. I owned the Montblanc, but I wanted to go there for a very specific reason, not just to see their general watches. They're perfectly fine, but they weren't the ones that excited me. What I wanted to try on was the new version of the Nicholas Rieussec. I love my Nicholas Rieussec. It is one of my favourite watches of all time, but I wanted to try on this new version, not because I like the look of it any better. I don't think I specifically do, but I know the case is different. It's more rounded, it's a little bit more organic, and has a different sort of look and feel to it. And I wanted just to see how this one fit onto my wrist compared to how my Nicholas Rieussec fits. And Montblanc are easy to find. The stores are everywhere, so definitely found one of those. But when I went inside, they did have lots of watches, but no Nicholas Rieussec, unfortunately. But next I wanted to go to Chopard because, well, they were next door. Plus, there's one specific watch I've always wanted to try on that I've never actually seen in person or tried on, and that is their Alpine Eagle. In particular, this blue version with this sort of spiralized dial. Such a pretty looking watch, such a nice looking watch, and it's something that I very much wanted to try on. And since they were here, well, it made sense to go and try it on. And, well, mixed results. I got to try on the watch. It was very nice. It was very comfortable. That dial was very nice, but they didn't have the blue variation, which was the one that I really wanted to see. But I guess can't complain too much. So yeah, sort of success there. And what have we got next? We're going to go to Bulgari. Now, they're easy to find as well. I'm always sort of quite keen to go to Bulgari, primarily because of their ultra-thin Octo Finissimo watch. I've tried it on a bunch of times already, so I didn't really need to try this one on again. But every time I do, it's just incredible how it feels on wrist. But one thing that I hadn't noticed about this watch, which was really good then to have tried it on again, because there was another feature to it that I hadn't seen before, had to do with the bracelet and the clasp. And it was really nice to actually then be able to notice this. And I'll try to show you now. You'll see the butterfly clasp is actually inset into the bracelet. So that was a success. So you can see there's lots of other brands as well, like Frank Mueller and a few other things, but those don't overly interest me. So they weren't on my list to see today. But I thought I might just sort of go for a wander and see what is next on my list. And that is Cartier. And in particular, one Cartier. And in particular, not because I overly love the design, but I like the wrist feel of it. And I know that's a bit strange, but I've tried a few Cartier on before, and they're nice watches. They really are. But it's the Santos that feels nice. It's not my favorite of their designs, but it's my favorite of how it feels when you're wearing it. So I was just planning on going seeing this sort of standard Cartier Santos, and I think it's a nice enough looking watch. But when I got there, I saw this. This is their dual time version with this silver grey dial, and wow, well, that is a little bit more interesting than the standard one. So I had to try that one on, and although it's still not something that I desperately want to own myself, it certainly pushes me a little bit further to liking, well, at least this version a little bit more, but definitely as comfortable as I remembered. So definitely worth trying on. So I'll say that's a success. Yep. So when you are walking around this store, you are going to see that, well, this shopping centre, you're going to see that it is firstly huge, multiple stories, and lots of watch stores, including Tudor. And I don't specifically need to try on more Tudors. I've tried on lots of Tudors. I've owned Tudor as well, specifically the Black Bay 58 Blue. But there's a version of the 58 that I haven't tried on, that I've only seen before, and it is this burgundy dial version. And it looks beautiful in person, but I hadn't tried it on. So I thought, well, let's try that one on and see how it sort of looks and feels on wrist. Well, maybe not feel. I know how it's going to feel, but I'm going to see how it looks on wrist. Unfortunately, they didn't have that version there, so I didn't get to try it on. And have a look at this weird store. I'm assuming it was kind of like a fashion store, or no, I think it was like an eyewear store where they sort of glasses. But look at these weird, strange things. They were huge. It was strange. I had to film it. Next, I had to go to Grand Seiko. Now, I have tried on a lot of Grand Seikos before, but every time I see Grand Seiko, I need to try them on. And every time I do try them on, I do try on one specific watch, and that is the White Birch, one of my favorite watches of all time. It's been my Grail watch for a long time. It's something that I've almost bought a number of times. I'm not sure if I will actually ever own it, but it is certainly something that I love to see in person, love to visit the Grand Seiko boutiques, and do like to try it on as well. And yeah, there was no problems trying this one on, and it is just as beautiful as I remember. It's the right size for me. It's a beautiful looking watch. It's got an amazing movement, and well, yes, that was a success. And there's one particular Breitling that always stands out to me. I've tried on a lot of their watches before, and I do like lots of them, but it's this chronograph pistachio. And I haven't actually had the opportunity to try it on specifically before. I've seen it a couple of times, but I wanted to actually put it on wrist, and I thought, here we go. Breitling, good idea, good time to try it on, but unfortunately, they didn't have that model there. They had a heap of others, but not that one. And, well, I couldn't go past IWC. And there's one specific watch in one specific configuration that I wanted to try, because I've tried this Portuguese on a few times, and it is really nice. It's actually one of my favorite sort of IWCs, but I've not tried it on the bracelet before. I'd actually tried to try it on the bracelet a few times before, but never had the opportunity because they never had it in stock. So I wanted to see whether or not this IWC store in Bangkok had this watch on the bracelet, and it did. And then they were nice enough to actually bring out both versions, one on the bracelet and one on the blue leather strap. So I got to try both on next to each other just to see how it felt. So, well, that was a success too. Fantastic. And probably one of my favorite sort of high-end luxury brands is Vacheron. I think I just like the style and the idea of them. I think they're very cool watches, and there's a few within their range that I do particularly like, but for some reason, it's the 1921 that always seems to stand out to me. It's one of these watches that is completely out of my price range. It is completely beautiful, but even if I could afford it, it's actually not one I'd actually probably buy just because I just don't think I'd wear it enough, but it's a watch that I just love seeing. And I've been able to try it on once before, but there was a problem. There was sort of two sizes, and I wasn't quite sure which one that I liked better on my 17 centimeter wrist. So they were nice enough to actually let me try on both. So this is the smaller version, the 36.5 millimeter, I think, which I actually think sits better on my wrist than this larger 40 millimeter version. And I think it's probably because of that sort of the case sort of look there, that the smaller is better for me. So that was a success, and I got to try both. Now this store is actually one that I was really excited to see because it had a lot of brands, and a lot of brands that you just don't see. But there was 3 brands and 3 watches that I wanted to specifically see from it, including this Credo. I've never had a hands-on experience with a Credo before, so that was on my list. And this Kaduki, which is a German watch brand, and this specific model was the one that I wanted to try. And one of my favorite watches now, probably of all time, is this H. Moser Retrograde 2nd. Now, I've included the little video here just to show you why I like it. Oh, yeah, that's really cool. It's a beautiful looking watch. I've handled a few Mosers before and they are lovely, but this particular complication is just, well, it's outstanding. So I was really hoping to see these particular 3 watches, but in fact there was so many nice watches in there, so I got to see a lot of watches, but it was this 3 that I really wanted to try on. So I got to see the Credo, and I'm going to say it was very nice. The movement looked very pretty. It was very well made, but I'll be honest, it didn't really excite me at all. I think there's other watches in that sort of category that are better. The Kaduki, however, was really nice. That was super, super cool. I did like that. It was nice to be able to try that one on, but it really was this Moser that stood out to me. In fact, this was probably the nicest and the best watch of the day for me. It was incredible. So that was a success. It was great, and got to see those other watches too. Now, Omega, well, I've been to Omega so many times. In fact, I probably wouldn't have bothered going to Omega again because I've just seen so many and tried on so many. But there was a boutique edition of the Aquaterra, this sort of burgundy dial that I just wanted to try on because I've seen it but not tried it on. And it's absolutely beautiful. In fact, it reminds me a little bit of the Moser in regard to that sort of colorway on the dial. Unfortunately, however, they didn't have that boutique edition. And so a watch that most surprises me in general, because I've tried this one on a couple of times, is from Zenith. Zenith is a cool brand. It's a brand that I've always thought about owning. It's a brand that I've looked at the second-hand watches. It's brands that I've tried a number of their watches. But there's one watch from their range, from their current range, this Defy Skylon skeleton with a 1/10 of a second complication that it just blows me away. And it surprises me because I'm not a big fan of skeleton dials and I'm not a big fan of integrated bracelets. But if you ever get a chance to go to a Zenith store, try this one on. It just has a lovely feel, a lovely wrist presence. It looks really cool, but it just, yeah, it's the feel of it. And yeah, it didn't disappoint me again. So it was nice to be able to try this one on again. So that, again, was a success for me. And one store that I was specifically wanting to go to when I booked my trip to Thailand was to go see Wise Watches. Unfortunately, their head office was closed because they were away at a show over in New York. But, well, they have other boutiques around, including a boutique store. They are located within the Watch Gallery zone in Siam Paragon, on the 3rd floor. So my plan was to leave the current floor that I was on, go up to the 3rd floor, find this watch gallery zone, and specifically find these 2 watches. I was hoping there was going to be some other watches there to see as well, but I wanted to see this GMT and I wanted to see this Damascus because they're the 2 from their range that I really wanted to see. So went along, found floor 3, tells you that there are watches on there. Went up to floor 3 and I started looking around, found a couple of interesting things like Optimus Prime here, so I just had to get a bit of footage of that. But I walked around floor 3 and I walked around floor 3 and I looked and I looked and there was no watch gallery there and there was no Wise there. So unfortunately, no Wise watches for me today, and so that's a bit disappointing. I'm hoping I can find them a little bit later. What I did find, however, was a lot of very luxury cars like Aston Martin and Bentley and Rolls-Royce and Maserati and some pretty cool watch cars to see. But as I was doing that, I was sort of then came across another brand which was in the back of my mind to see, but I wasn't actually specifically thinking I was going to see it here in this store, and that was, well, G-Shock. And when I saw G-Shock, I thought, well, that's Casio. I wonder if they have a watch that I'd actually quite like to see, their new Edifice Automatic. That's not a watch that I'm desperate to own, but it's certainly something that I'm quite keen to get hands-on with and to actually see in person. And, well, look at that. They had them. So I got to try them on, which was great. And they were much more substantial than I expected. I expected them to feel, to be honest, I expected them to feel a little bit cheap, but they're actually quite nice. They weren't perfect. I think the lug-to-lug was a bit big and the bracelet sat a little bit weird on my wrist. But overall, it was actually quite a substantial watch, and the dial was particularly nice too. And, well, that sort of ended my trip at Siam Paragon. I pretty much got to try on everything that I wanted. I got to try on a couple of things that were unexpected. I missed out on a couple, which was a little bit disappointing, but I also got to have a bit of a walk around this big, huge store. See some amazing things like those luxury cars as well. And yeah, I really appreciate you coming for this journey with me to Siam Paragon today for this 20 watch challenge in Bangkok, Thailand. It's something which I think I might try again later on. And when I go on my further travels around the world or even just around Australia, let me know what you think of this particular format. Whether you liked it or not, leave me a comment below. But either way, thank you so much for watching. And I would love for you to check out some of my other videos next.